Tired of feeling like you're spinning all the plates in your design business and at any moment they could all come crashing down? Are you feeling like you're so close to breaking through to the next level, but those consistent projects still aren't flowing your way? Are you ready to finally take your business from a hobby to 100K and beyond? Then welcome to the SixFigure Designer Podcast. I'm talking all the techniques you need in your design business to start paying yourself, get great clients, and finally break through that 5-figure ceiling.
Well, hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Can you believe we are already at Wednesday? It's another day that I'm doing a live here today to talk about tools and techniques for the introverted interior designer to help them with sales in their business, because I'm getting ready to do a free seminar called Sales for Introverts, which is coming up very, very soon. If you're interested in signing up for that and you like all these lives, you can definitely go ahead and get signed up with the link in my bio. The other thing I wanted to let everyone know is that if you have seen that I've done some lives before, or if you have just looked over some of the topics that look interesting to you, you can, of course, watch them on Instagram. But I'm also been posting them on my in my podcast as well, called SixFigure Designer. So you can always go ahead and check all of those out there if you're in the car and you want to be listening to some of this. But videos are kind of one of those things that it's harder for you to find time. So welcome to another Wednesday version of Sales for Introverts. And today we're going to talk about 10 crucial questions that you can go ahead and answer that's going to solve a lot of problems in your business. And I bet you're wondering what's up with that. But one of the things that I'm hearing all the time, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this, is that you never know what to post. You never know what to post on social media, and you're just always racking your brain. And it's very stressful in terms of like what you should be talking about, what you should be writing about. And so that's the first thing that I hear all the time. And then one of the other big items that I hear is that clients just don't understand. Like their expectations are not in line with, starting a project. A lot of times we hire, clients hire interior designers and have never hired an interior designer before. So the only perspective they have is maybe things that they've seen, friends that they've talked to, or something that they've seen on TV, right? So if you are struggling with maybe what to post on social media, or if clients aren't understanding some of the parameters of what it's like to work with you, these 10 questions can really, really help you start to craft so many things. So let's just briefly talk about what these questions and answers could be used for. So first of all, they can be used for FAQs. So we've talked about in previous lives about how you can use FAQs, or frequently asked questions, to help set the tone and answer questions that are going on in your potential customer's mind in terms of like what happens and how things work and all of that. So you can definitely use some of these questions and answers for the FAQs in your business. The other thing is, which we touched on, you can use these for social media posts. If, again, you never know what to talk about or what to post, if you look at these questions, and I'm actually going to give you probably more than 10, you can start to craft these things that make most sense for your own business, and then have really a lot of information that you can post for social media content. The other thing I want everybody to remember is that you can repurpose content. So as creatives, we feel like we need to create something once, and then it's never to be reused again because we have to create something new. So also I want you to be thinking about how you can repurpose content, and you can literally use the same words, change the picture, or use the same picture, change the words. But those are ways to also make it so much easier on ourselves in terms of trying to figure out content. I saw somebody talk about it this week where they were literally like tearing their hair out and trying to figure out what they had to post, what they could possibly talk about. So think about ways that you can kind of mash up your content in different ways. Say it a different way, but it's still the same basic outline. Change the picture up, things like that. Another way that you can use these 10 questions and answers is for the beginnings of articles or blogs. There's so many people that have said, oh my God, I should be blogging, or I should be doing emails to my list, or I should be creating a newsletter, but then they get down to it and they cannot figure out what for the life of them to talk about. So again, these are the beginnings of longer articles. Of course, you can use like a chat GPT to expand on some of your ideas and some of your thoughts to fill it out to be longer, like an article that you would put in your newsletter. So these items can be used in the articles, your blogs, your newsletter. And if you're podcasting, of course, this could be the beginnings of a podcast episode. The fourth way that you can use these 10 questions and answers is an alternative to being published. So many designers that I've talked to, so we're teaching the shock and awe box method, which is a way to basically close sales in your business and let people get to know you and kind of understand that you are the go-to resource. And one of the items that I always recommend is that you put in a published article. Well, I'm finding that a lot of designers have not been published yet. They really want to be published, but that hasn't happened yet. And so this is an alternative to being published. And what it does is it allows a client to really get to know you, understand what's important to you. And you can also be talking about, of course, a single project and set it up as if it were an article in a published, in published media, right? Of course, you're not going to, indicate or make it seem like this was something that was published, but basically you're just saying this article was created by me and written by me. So this is another way that you can use it. So you can use it for FAQs, you can use it for social media posts, you can use it for the beginnings of articles, podcast topics, blogs, or in your newsletter, or an alternative to being published. So let's dive into some of the questions, because I know that you're curious to know. And you can either use these questions, I'm fine with you swiping and deploying these questions in your own business, or it could be just a great jumping off point for you to sort of figure out if these questions are going to work for you, or what questions would really work in your business. So one of the things that we're going to go through is some of the 10 questions. And these are things that I come across a lot of times. In fact, I get asked this even a lot of times from when I am published. So again, these are things that people want to know. So one of the first things you can answer is, how did you get started, or how did you get interested in interior design? Everyone wants to know that backstory. They find it fascinating and they find it kind of really interesting is what led you to this creative path. And I've been asked this question so many times on podcasts, and I think it's a great way for clients to get to know you, kind of know where you come from and how you came to be at this point in your career. So how did you get started or interested in interior design? Definitely a question you can go ahead and answer. How about, what's the one element you incorporate in every project? Now, maybe it's not one specific element, but maybe it's something that's super important to you that you feel like this is the way that you create design. Because it also talks about things that are important to you as a designer, and it lets you start a jumping off point with a client to say, this is why this is the most important thing for me, or this is why I start this part of the process. And again, it gives them an opportunity to get to know you, understand your philosophy as a designer, and to understand whether or not there's going to be great rapport if you guys are in alignment there. Because we all know that rapport is incredibly important as you spend 2 to 12 to 24 months together, right? In someone's most sacred space, which is behind the doors and all the nooks and crannies of somebody's home. So second question, what's one element you incorporate in every project? Next question would be, talk about a favorite project of yours and why was it your favorite? This is should be pretty easy for you. And even if you have a couple, this could be, again, 2 separate questions that then could become blog posts or articles or social media posts. Now, explain why they're favorites. Was it because the client let you do, basically go crazy and do whatever you wanted? Was it because there was no budget? Was it because the client collected art and you love incorporating art into an interior? Was it because it was something challenging that you'd never done before and you love challenges, or you love figuring out the answers to hard problems? I mean, that's what we do a lot day in and day out. And I think that as designers, we almost forget that things that come so easy to us, and things that we love, and we love figuring out, issues. We like to come up with creative solutions. Like, that's just us. Like, that is just the way we operate. But clients don't see it that way. They see that as a magic power. They see that as something so incredibly interesting. So if you were to talk about your favorite project and why it was your favorite, that's going to give them some insight into the types of projects and things that you really enjoy doing. What's something you wish you knew sooner in your career? This, again, might be great for a blog post. It might also be the jumping off point for another type of article. So I would answer that question. What's something you wish you knew sooner that in hindsight, you're like, wow, I wish I wasn't so worried about this, or I wish I had known that this is what clients really want, or I wish I had known how to market better. Any of those things. What does that answer? Because that's also going to be very telling for you and your business in terms of just some discovery in terms of how you can push your business forward. And then again, this is great content moving forward. So what's something you wish you knew sooner in your career? Question 5, describe a situation where the original design called for one detail, but as you gathered more information, another detail ultimately got installed. Oh, this is so awesome, because one of the things that I tell all my clients, and I will tell you as well, and I'm sure as designers you all know this, that design is a process. You start at the beginning of the project thinking, not necessarily you as the designer, but maybe the client thinks that everything's going to look a certain way. This is my idea of what this is what this is ultimately going to look like. But as you move through the questions and the functionality and what they're really looking for and things that they didn't know existed, sometimes that vision changes and it can start to morph into something else. And as you know, if you're doing renovations, or even if you're doing new builds, like, things are changing all the time. You discover something behind the walls that you didn't know was there. You found out that you can't do this detail because it's not acceptable in that community, or it doesn't work with something that's there, or now that material is no longer available, and now you've got to make a new selection, or a completely new decision. So again, answering this question will also help in the education process for clients to understand that, where we start isn't necessarily where we're going to end up in a project. And these are ways to set expectations, to educate clients along the way. So the question was, describe a situation where the original design called for one detail, but as you gathered more information, another detail got ultimately installed. And start to talk about why that came about, how that happened. And this is a great question to answer. Question 6 is, where do you get your inspiration from? Like, where do you, as a creative, go to first to get inspiration for when you're starting a new project, or when you have a challenging design situation come up? Where do you go? And also, subsequently, where would you recommend a client go to help talk to you about what they're looking for? I've always told clients, of course you can go on Pinterest and you can go online and all those things. But I always also tell clients, go walk into your closet. That's going to be very telling in terms of the way you like to live and the colors that you are gravitating towards. And, are you more dressed up, or you're more casual? That probably will translate into your home. But as a designer, where do you get your inspiration from? So is it nature, or is it something special in your upbringing? Did you grow up around antiques? Like, where does this all come from? This, again, is very fascinating to clients, and they want to know how your mind works, right? So where do you get your inspiration from would be question number 6. And then even a follow-up question is, how do you recommend clients find some inspiration for themselves in a relatively easy way? The 7th question would be, how do you help clients work through the process of culling or, going through all the information to create a cohesive design presentation? That is, one of the reasons they hire us, right? So have you heard the saying that everyone can have the ingredients, but now everyone can cook or can be a chef? Well, this is the designer. Um, Clients have parts and pieces or things that they like, or they can see another interior that they appreciate, but only you as the designer can really start to mix it up and make the decision in terms of what items are important to the space and then what are really too much or not needed or doesn't help elevate the design. You're the expert. So you're the Michelin chef. You're the one that can take all this information and help them cull it down to just what's needed to create like an amazing space. So answer this question, how do you help clients work through that? And that is amazing for even your FAQ sheets and again, blog posts, social media posts, because it's allowing people to understand that, yes, we get it. There's always one more thing to look at. There's always 10 more things to look at. At what point do we say, pencils down, we're ready to move forward, and we think we need to add these 2 elements and remove these 3 elements? Next question is what's one way you help clients craft their vision? And we kind of talked about that earlier. Where do you ask them to go for inspiration? What's something easy that they can answer? Because they feel like this is like, they're hiring you because obviously they feel like they can't do it themselves, or else you wouldn't be there and be involved. So how can you help them make it easy and fun? How do you help them craft their vision? How do you help them decide what elements are helpful? What part of your process do you use currently that helps them visualize when generally they are not visual people? So that question is, how do you help clients craft their vision? Next question is, this could be a good one. What is a design pet peeve of yours? Now, it could be something like, well, for me, I'll tell you one of mine is when clients hang art too high. Oh, I hate it. It drives me crazy. It's like when you have pants that are too short. It's just like, it just kind of drives you nuts. And I generally like to hang art a little bit on the lower side, probably because I'm only about 5 feet tall. But I like art to be on the lower side. So when people hang art too high, that is a big pet peeve of mine. But think about how that could be a blog post or a social media post. Why are clients hanging it too high? What is a great hanging height that you would like? I try to think about it in terms of not necessarily inches, like where that should be off the floor or something like that, but something more like halfway between the floor and the ceiling. If it's a lower height space, like 8 foot or 7.5 feet, then that makes more sense to me. Or in line with the top of another element in the room, like a window or something like that. Or you could also say eye level for an average, person that's living in that space so that they really can appreciate the art as they move through. See how that could eventually be a great blog post or an incredible social media post. And it's not just, so a pet peeve of mine when it comes to designers is just look at this great space. No explanation, no backstory, no nothing. And we all know that to create that space took months and months. And yet we're doing ourselves such a disservice by just saying, picture, enjoy it. I'm giving you nothing. So think about ways that you can start to talk about what's going on in your projects. And talking about pet peeves, is pretty easy for most people. And most designers know exactly what they like and exactly what they don't like. So moving on to that. So that was question 9, actually, and we're coming up on question 10. I'm even going to give you a couple bonus questions. So how about this? Talk about a situation where a client said to you, I would have never thought of that idea or detail or material, but your suggestion really helped elevate the space or the function or the idea or the mood. So why don't you recount something that happened where a client said to you, wow, I would have never done this, but it works and it's so much better. And we're so happy about this unexpected detail that came about that we would have not thought of on our own. This is an incredible way for you to talk about the value of hiring a designer without saying, I bring lots of value to a project, right? This is a way better way to do it. So telling these stories also make it a lot more memorable for the people reading it or listening to it, because they're like, oh, I remember that story you told about the client who did this, this, and this, and then you suggested this one other detail and it made a big difference. Like, it's just easier for people to remember that as well. So you're doing a really great job of not only educating clients about design and how design elevates a space, but how you bring value to the project, and then what's basically the transformation the client's going to receive because of that. So that 10th question again is talk about a situation where a client said to you, I would have never thought of that. And your suggestion really helped make it so much better. I'm going to give you a couple more questions that you can also think about as well, because this also is talking about basically attracting the type of clients that you want to be working with when you answer this question. So, what's one item you wish clients knew before starting a project? So now again, you're educating them. You're saying, hey, these are some things that clients are coming to me that they don't know, but it's almost like I can't help them with that. Or it would be great to know some of this because, you've had clients come to you or potential clients come to you and say, I want to do this project. And there's like no information. They don't know how much money they want to spend. They don't know what style they're doing. They don't have any timing. They're not sure they want to do it or not, whatever those items are. So how can you help them? How can you help them along by just saying, hey, I wish clients would have this type of information, these types of details before starting a project or before doing the research to hire a designer. This can also really help you in your business start to anticipate those questions where if someone's coming to you and asking that over and over again, like potential clients, you can start answering those in your discovery calls. And they're going to be like, oh my God, they are incredible. They answered all these questions before I even knew, I needed this or before I thought about it. So it's also like a great tool that you can use in your business. So what's one item you wish clients knew before starting a project? And then the final bonus 12th question is, what's something that clients don't know that frustrates you? And this is going to come down to really, many people have told me about expectations. They don't understand how long things take. They don't understand the process. They think that, they say go and it's going to be 5 days and there's going to be a full blown design. So what's something that clients don't know that frustrates you? This is really going to, again, help you in your FAQs, your frequently asked questions, ways that you can set expectations up front because you can start answering these questions ahead of time. So that is an excellent, excellent question to be answered. So your charge is to start creating your own 10 questions. Of course, I am happy for you to swipe and deploy the 10 questions I've given you or 12 questions that I've given you and use them in your own business. Now, you're probably wondering like, well, how do I do this? How do I start asking and answering these questions in my own business? And it really kind of comes down to your modality in terms of learning. If you're a really good, like if you like to write or think and then type, then write the question, answer the question. I'm finding that most people find it easier to have their 10 questions where someone does like an interview with them. Maybe it's another designer friend. Maybe it's someone in your family that can ask you these questions. And then you just sit down and literally record the question and the answers. You can then upload it to like a transcription service, like a Temi, and there you go. There's your basis for your next 12 blog posts, your next 12 social media posts, and then you just, keep rotating back and forth. I mean, this is an incredible way to just create content that is just keeps going and you don't have to, it's not so hard. Like I just know so many people are so frustrated and just feel like it's so hard and it's just one more thing to do. But when you have someone asking you these questions and then you're just having a conversation answering them, it also, like, things are going to come out that you probably, that you knew innately, but you just had never put down in words before. So you're going to start your 10 or 12 questions. You can use mine if you'd like. You're going to answer those 10 or 12 questions either, in interview form, in written form, however is easiest for you, whatever doesn't stress you out. So this is not something to stress you out for sure. And you can, from there, I bet you're going to come up with maybe a couple other questions. The great thing is if you get interviewed by somebody, you may say something in your answer, and then they might do a follow-up question where they say, oh, you said something interesting here. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that? Again, that's creating more content. And we always are looking for content for social media, for FAQs, for blogs, for our newsletter, for our emails. I mean, aren't we always looking to create content? I think that we are. So I just wanted to remind you again that I'm going to be putting these lives on my podcast, SixFigure Designer, so that if you missed this or you want to go back to it and listen to it in the car, certainly it's going to be over there in the pod. And I am running a free webinar coming up called Sales for Introverts, where we talk about this and other easy ways for you to sell yourself without selling yourself hard in front of people, especially if you're an introvert and you just really feel really uncomfortable. Kind of tooting your own horn or talking on your feet. A lot of times we get asked questions and it's really difficult to talk on our feet because we just get really, really nervous and self-conscious. So I'm running a webinar coming up called Sales for Introverts. You can sign up with a link in the bio, or if you want to comment SFI in the notes there on your comments, I can definitely get you added to the list and we will do that. But thank you so much for joining me for another week of lives for Sales for Introverts on Instagram. I really appreciate it. And if you're listening on the podcast, thanks for being here and listening. So thanks so much. And I hope you guys have a great week. And I will see you next Wednesday at noon Eastern. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.